Well, now, when you have A and P, I want to do the other class, I guess you teach it.
Yeah.
All right, we'll start off with roll call.
It's okay. Miller,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Gilmore,
Here.
Bird,
Here.
Oliver, Lord,
Here.
Kiefer,
Here.
Klassen,
Here.
Hodges.
Here.
Holloway,
Kelly.
Kelly,
Here for Neil.
Neal,
Bill.
Littleton. Hefner is absent and, Heinrichs is also absent. But we do have a quorum.
I call the February 6, 2020 Citizens Advisory Committee meeting to order. First order of business is citizens with CAC business to present to the CAC. Seeing none, we'll move on to year 46 CDBG subrecipient application presentations. Good evening, I'm Chad Kiefer, and it's my pleasure to serve as the current chairperson of the CAC. Tonight we'll hear from presentations by agencies who are applying for Year 46 Community Development Block Grant or CDBG funds. CDBG funds are provided to the city by the federal government, Department of Housing and Urban Development. I want to thank each presenter for taking their personal time to make these presentations on behalf of their organizations and the individuals and families they represent and serve. I would like to go over a few basic ground rules we will follow this evening. I would ask everyone with a cell phone or other electronic device to please turn them off or place them in a silent mode. I remind each presenter that you have a 5-minute time limit for your presentations, and that includes time for any guests or other presenters you may have with you. If you did bring a guest, I ask that you allow your guest to address the CAC first. Don Cameron will keep the track of the time with a timer you will be able to see. When your time has expired, you will hear a beep. If you have any handouts, please give them to Dawn, and she will distribute them to the CAC members after the presentations. These presentations are being videotaped and can be seen on the Government Access channel at a later time. They will also be posted on the city's website. At the conclusion of your presentation, there will be an opportunity for members of the CAC to ask questions. I remind everyone that each CAC member has reviewed each application individually, and we have met together at a work session with staff to ask for clarification of questions we had or to ask additional information. Many of you have received these questions and have responded to them. Thank you for your timely responses. I mention this to assure you that there is no reason for concern if you do not get any questions tonight. Conversely, if you do get questions tonight, it merely means a member has come up with a question they had not previously thought of, or possibly they would like clarification of something in your presentation tonight. We will proceed with the presentations in the order shown on the agenda. I would ask each presenter to give your name and the agency, organization, and program you are presenting. With that said, I will ask the members of the CAC to introduce themselves, starting on my right, or on my left with Tammy Lord.
Hi, Tammy Lord.
Austin Bird.
Dale Gilmore.
Reagan Johnson. Chris Miller. Martha Neal.
Elizabeth Hodges.
Fred Class.
Thanks. We'll begin with our first presentation from Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Hi. Hello, I am Sarah Walker with Big Brothers Big Sisters. I'm our Chief Program Officer, and we are going to start by having Amy Barth share about her experiences because she works at our agency, but she's also a big sister, so, yes.
So my little Stephanie and I, we've been matched for about 6 years now. So she wanted to come tonight. She has basketball practice, and she is really excelling in basketball, and is really focused on that this year. So in the 6 years that we've been matched, when I was first matched with Stephanie, she was 9 years old, and she had a lot of bullying issues at school. She has very supportive parents. But in school, she was not making those connections with her peers and having a lot of issues there. Would look at the ground and not look at you. I've seen tremendous growth in her, and I think the biggest contributor to that is the match activities that we host at Big Brothers Big Sisters. It gets all of our children together in the same atmosphere, and they're kids that might not be friends at school, but they are so supportive of each other when they're at our activities. And it gets them out of their shell and allows them to talk, and just in pushing her to just kind of make those connections and to talk to people and have that confidence, you would never know today. She will talk all day long, and she will make friends with everybody she meets. So our program is not just for single parent households or kids that maybe are struggling in the community. It's for their emotional well-being as well. And to see that growth in the kids in our program is absolutely tremendous. And to personally be involved with one is beyond. It's very great.
I don't know what else to add. I mean, these are great stories. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. And I guess I will say from my interactions with Stephanie and the way that Amy is consistent, they get together at least a couple times a month when they have lengths of time where things are kind of crazy and they have to adjust. They know how to communicate that to each other. As she said, Stephanie's family, her parents are very supportive, and that's huge. It's really important for us to have that buy-in from our parents and that communication between the big and the parent as they support the child. Stephanie is a super fantastic kid. She's a freshman in high school. She's doing all the things that we want freshmen in high school to be doing, and I know that some of those things would not be happening if it wasn't for Big Brothers Big Sisters and the connection and the support that she's got from Amy. So that's it.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next presenter is Friendly House.
Good evening, I'm Lorelei Fouts, Executive Director at Friendly House, and I'm very pleased to introduce you to Jennifer and her son Kenny. Maybe you can guess who the participant is. It's Kenny. But they participate in our after-school program. So I'll let her share a little bit about her experience and Kenny's experience.
I am so fortunate to live close to Friendly House and to actually be a participant there. And as a single parent raising him, it's amazing. I am so supportive. The days that there aren't school, I have dropped him off so I can go to work. The hours are tremendous. I mean, they save me so many times. I do property preservation. Sometimes I'm traveling from Washington down, and I usually try to get him about 4:30 or 5, but there have been days that I've rolled in at 10 to 6. The value for the money is amazing. I mean, I can afford it. I'm happy to afford it. I thank them every day. It has such an impact on my own life, and I know that other programs, while I haven't partaken of them because of conflicts or haven't had a need, my neighbors, have taken advantage of the holiday help assistance that they do. I see people that I know from the neighborhood up there getting bread from sort of the little food banks. So, I mean, I would say that it has brought so much to the neighborhood, and I am so lucky. And I just think that if this was replicated in all neighborhoods with the quality and the price and the relief and the help that it gives to families, we'd have a much different community, not just here, but across the country. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
I think she is an example of what we try and do every day is meet our families where they're at. And sometimes they may take advantage of the presenting program like we are sharing with you tonight and asking for your support. But there are other benefits besides just being a daycare, so families can access other resources. And then that's our goal, is to meet the whole family and the needs of the whole family. But most of all, make sure Kenny is in a safe place and it's affordable for families. And the way we can help make it affordable is find those resources to offset the real costs of running an operation. And so, we're asking you to help with the staff support, which is, the biggest part of what we do. And we're very happy to have been supported by you before, and we look forward to being a partner with you again. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next presenter is Vera French.
I'm gonna read it so I don't leave anything out, sorry. Vera French's Supported Community Living Hourly Services Program stands in what would otherwise be an enormous gap in the care available to those with chronic mental illness. On one side of the gap, we have people who come to Vera French for services, but they can work full-time and they live what would otherwise be considered to be a fairly normal life. On the other side of that gap, you have people who can't live on their own and they require expensive placement in residential care facilities of some kind. SCL works with people who are able to live in their own apartments or homes, but who require an extra layer of support to keep them independent and out of expensive residential treatment programs. The services that they receive are highly individualized. We help people set up their medications in pill organizers so they can easily track whether or not they've taken the right dose on the right day at the right time. Some of our folks suffer with mental confusion because of their symptoms, and it's not really possible for them to do that completely independently without a staff person to help double check what they're doing. Many of our clients spend a great deal of their lives trapped in their apartments by depression or anxiety or both. I carry in my mind a vivid picture that sums up a great deal of what we do. It's an abandoned shopping cart in the middle of an aisle at Walmart with some items in it and no shopper anywhere to be found. What happened was that the client went in, didn't have a support person, the anxiety built up and it got too heavy for them and they had to literally flee the store before they could complete their purchases. With staff support, sometimes what starts out to be a defeat can be turned into a victory. The plan for one day's visit might be to get out of the apartment and go walk in the mall. Just a few too many people, too much busyness, a little bit of anxiety, and the client has to retreat to the staff's car where they can decompress and calm themselves back down. And then after they've taken time to gather themselves back together, we can maybe go to the library or someplace where there aren't as many people and they're able to complete the outing. A client this is an example of a victim of a horrific physical assault and who suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder, may find it completely impossible to confront their accuser in court without their SCL specialist there to provide comfort and encouragement. Issues with concentration can create challenges in communicating with providers of goods and services. A client switching their primary insurance from Medicaid to Medicare may suddenly find themselves with hundreds of dollars of monthly copays for medications that they couldn't even begin to pay. It may be simply beyond the capacity of that client to sort this out without staff assisting them, either over the phone or in person at the Department of Human Services. It's really hard to follow complex arguments when you have a voice echoing in the back of your head telling you how terrible you are and that you deserve to die. And literally, that's an example of what some of our people are trying to deal with. A client with an addiction problem may find they need to attend rehab several times a week as a condition of his or her parole. Frequently, these clients don't own cars, and we can help them find out how to reserve rides that can be paid for by Medicaid. The service is also available for all medical appointments, but many clients don't know that it exists, and some who do know that it exists find it hard to track the appointments and schedule the rides without staff assistance. The SCL Hourly Services Program is the right thing to do because our fellow citizens really need the services that we provide, but it's also the right thing to do from the standpoint of dollars and cents. Our services frequently help people avoid going to a higher level of care. A month's stay in a group home can range between $3,700 a month to up to $9,000 a month on the high end. SCL services generally run for monthly services run from a low of about $100 a month to a high end of about $1,000 a month. So we believe the program is important and we deeply appreciate your continued support for this vital program. Any questions?
I did have one question, and it was brought up in our review meeting, and I just didn't quite get the answer I was looking for. Your tracking methods said that keeping 95% of your participants out of hospital admissions for the success metrics, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I was specifically asking, is that only inpatient admission, or does that also include ER visits?
In past years, that would include inpatient visits. It wouldn't include an emergency room visit, but it would include someone having to stay. We decided to change the metric this year to something we think is more meaningful, and that's keeping people from having to go to a higher level of care. So this year, we're gonna be trying to keep whatever that figure I gave was, 95% of our clients from having to move into that group home, or we have residential care facilities, which is even a higher level of care. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next presenter is Humility Homes and Services.
Hello, I'm Ryan Bopes. I'm the Strategic Initiatives and Grants Manager with Humility Homes and Services. Thank you for the invitation to present today. Humility Homes operates a 70-bed emergency shelter for single adults age 18 and older on West 5th Street in Davenport. We utilize a low barrier model to provide services, and low barrier meaning we try to make it as easy as possible for people to get in. For example, you don't need identification, your criminal background is not checked, and we will do intakes if we have openings at any time of the day, including 3 a.m. In addition, we accept individuals who are struggling with serious mental health issues and maybe using drugs and or alcohol. Our goal is to meet a person where they are at, provide them client-centered support, and work with them to identify housing of their choice. There are no time limits to a person's shelter stay. We recognize each person's barriers to housing. We'll create a unique path they follow. However, in order to stay in our shelter and receive services, you must be actively working on a housing plan. Humility Homes seeks CDBG funds to support our housing specialist staff. We employ 3 full-time housing specialists who help identify an individual's barriers to permanent housing, create a targeted plan for them to obtain housing, and then work collaboratively with the individual to get them out of shelter as quickly as possible. They're trained in crisis management, trauma-informed care, and motivational interviewing. In conjunction with other community partners, many of which are in the room tonight, very worthy of funding, we utilize evidence-based assessment tools which efficiently identify a person's needs and barriers to housing. Then collaboratively, actions are taken to address those barriers, anything from obtaining identification to conducting job search to showing apartments to individuals. The data we have tracked show that housing specialists really help people exit to permanent housing destinations. In fiscal year 2017, with no housing specialists employed, our average length of stay was 36 days and only 18% of participants exited to permanent housing. In fiscal year 2018, with 6 months of 3 housing specialists employed from January on, our average length of stay was 34 days and 33% of participants exited to permanent housing. And then last year in fiscal year 19, with a full year of 3 housing specialists employed, our average length of stay was 28 days and 43% of participants exited to permanent housing. And then year to date, this year as of February 1st, our average length of stay is 24 days and 53% of participants exit to permanent housing. So we've seen a continued increase year after year with the support of the housing specialists. CDBG funds are an integral part of supporting our emergency shelter by helping staff to fund staff positions that are vital to ongoing success for our participants. Without this financial commitment, caseloads would increase, outcomes would suffer, and the cycle of homelessness would continue. Thank you for your consideration. Any questions? Yes?
Do you get like repeat people that come back? Or-
Yeah, so that happens. So individuals might be considered chronically homeless if we see them multiple times in the same year.
If they're chronically homeless, then what happens?
So then they just need some extra support. And so that might be something where the housing specialists would meet with them more frequently during the week in order to try to figure out a plan. So
Would they be in the shelter then? Or?
yeah, yep.
Do you know how many you have to turn away because you don't have room?
Right, so right now we're thankful that the winter emergency shelter is open because we would be turning away a lot more. Since December 1st, the winter emergency shelter has served close to 250 individuals that are not staying in our shelter. So our shelter is running closer to 80 individuals per night right now. And we are turning away, I just talked to the shelter monitors this morning, about 10 people a day. So it's still a big need.
They're the same 10 people, or?
Nope, usually different. Sometimes the same, but usually different.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next presenter is Family Resources.
Good evening. Thank you for having all of us come and present to you. My name is Allie Brokaw, and I work at Family Resources. I supervise our Iowa Domestic Abuse Program. We were going to have an individual come and speak with you, but she had eye surgery that was moved to this afternoon, so we totally understand that she's recovering at home, but she was great, and she wrote out her story, so I'll go ahead and read that. My name is Pat, and I am 72 years old. I received services for domestic abuse after my husband of 48 years abused me physically, financially, and emotionally. He cheated on me for many years without my knowledge, drained all of our bank accounts, and left after I'd already been put in the hospital due to the abuse. I was sitting at home by myself, feeling very alone, when Dakota called me on the phone. We talked through my situation, and she had given me a few options on how to move forward. Dakota showed up at the courthouse when I needed her to help me fill out my order of protection paperwork, took it up to the judge, and successfully got my paperwork signed. She also got me associated with Iowa Legal Aid, which has been helpful moving forward in my situation. She has always been there when I have needed her. Family Resources has helped me work through many things. One of the things I've learned about abuse is that it comes in many forms. It doesn't always have to be physical. I've gotten my ribs broken, been manipulated, and bullied most of my marriage, more so as I have gotten older. I think people should always reach out to tell somebody what is going on and should never go at things alone. I hid my domestic violence like a dirty secret when I really just needed to reach out to someone. I am very thankful that I called Family Resources that day and that they have helped me move forward with my life in that direction. Signed, Pat Murfield. Pat was great to share her story, and like Pat, we serve hundreds of survivors of domestic violence that file for orders of protection and are looking for resources in Scott County. In fiscal year 2019, our advocates funded by this grant assisted over 500 individuals understand and navigate the legal system. We informed them of their rights, we connected them to community resources, and we safety planned with them. We empower survivors to take back control over their lives, whatever that means to them, whether that's through the legal system or accessing some resources that just help them become more self-sufficient. Without your support for these services, hundreds of survivors of domestic violence wouldn't receive the level of care and services that they do today. So thank you so much for your support. It really does mean so much to the survivors in our community.
Any questions? All right, thank you. Next presenter is Project Renewal.
Hi, my name is Leslie. I'm 11 years old. I have been going to Project Renewal Youth Program for 7 years, since I was 5 years old. I learned a lot of stuff here since these past 7 years. For fun, I help little kids with homework. My passion is to be a doctor when I grow up. Hi, my name is John. I am 12 years old. I have been going to Project Renewal for 5 years, since I was 9. My favorite thing to do is play on the computer with my friends. At Project Renewal, we have also done fun activities like field trips to Michael's Fun World. I've learned how to be good friends with my peers. They helped me grow up when life was tough. I help little kids with homework, and my passion is becoming a professional NFL football player.
Good evening. CDBG support and your support will help Project Renewal fulfill our mission to help families and children. Will be a positive presence, and we do not take this for granted. Youth attendance during Project Renewal's programming assures participants are being exposed to all the many positive activities we provide. By showing up, participants are engulfed in a safe, loving environment. Once kids show up, their needs are addressed. If they're hungry, we give them something to eat. If they need appropriate clothing, we provide them with these items. When these initial basic needs are met, we can work on addressing social emotional needs, nurturing growth and stability for each child. As basic needs and psychological needs for each youth are being met, we provide educational support to help them meet their individual goals. The opportunities Project Renewal provides helps them discover themselves, finding healthy interests, what they're good at, what they don't like, or what they might like and they didn't know that. We give youth opportunities for positive risk-taking, assure them that it's okay to make mistakes, help them learn from their mistakes, and overcome challenges. It's not just about helping kids with their homework, which we do and will continue to do, but they also need to have experiences. Individual experiences, group experiences, family experiences, to be able to communicate appropriately, build and maintain relationships, and to help them learn how to relate to others and understand how things work in our community, in our world. Without these experiences, what may be simple homework assignments can sometimes become complex when kids lack that frame of reference. Basic questions and problems can become incomprehensible. Some of our kids aren't exposed to teachings that might be gained through family experiences or vacations or a family business or social circles to help understand concepts that some may learn organically. When your childhood lacks this framework, that compass, it creates hurdles and challenges in youth development, sometimes in unsuspecting ways. Kids can become frustrated. This leads to some disinterest in school sometimes, or acting out negative behavior and wondering, why do I need to know this? Then that can foster these negative feelings, low self-esteem, loss of hope, each contributing to a downward spiral for youth. And we want to build our kids up. And that is exactly what CDBG funding can do. Project Renewal will continue our educational support while supporting activities beyond the traditional classroom experience. These will broaden minds and increase social comprehension. Last year, our overall contributions increased field trip outings and camp participations. We partnered with local colleges and universities. We created invaluable opportunities. Our kids had the chance to visit local attractions in the Quad City area, take swimming lessons, go on business tours, college tours, trade visits, and hear from guest speakers to talk to them about with job tips and career opportunities. Project Renewal is a great asset to our fragile Davenport neighborhood where we're located. Our mission gives stability, love, and hope for a meaningful future. Thank you very much.
Any questions? Thank you. Next presenter is Boys and Girls Club.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Zimmerman-Waldman. I'm the Director of Impact and Marketing for the Boys and Girls Clubs. Thank you for having us tonight, for your continued support. I'm going to let Ian here tell you a little bit more about what we do at Club every day.
Hi, my name is Ian. I've been a member of Davenport Boys and Girls Club for 4 years, and today I'm here to talk about Boys and Girls Club. So when we're in the building, we start by getting hand sanitizer and a snack and juice. Then we start Power Hour, where we do educational things on the computers and tablets or homework. Then we get started on programs. We do 1 million hours of service, coding, or go in the gym and more. Then we have dinner. We have a variety of food each day. For free time, we have computers, tablets, and Xbox, PS3, and Nintendo Switch, and a Wii. Sometimes on Wednesdays, you have a snack shack where we buy snacks, and that money is used to buy new equipment. At the end of the day, our parents pick us up and we go home. My favorite things to do at Club are free time, gym, and program. That's what we do at the Boys and Girls Club. Thank you.
So again, obviously we do a lot of different things at the Boys and Girls Clubs. I kind of think of us as a multivitamin. We're not really sure what all of our kids are missing, so we give them a little bit of everything, and hopefully whatever they need is absorbed. We're also pretty much an inch wide but a mile deep. So we only do after school care, youth development. We do that for 6 through 18. This program is just through our elementary members, but we are able to provide them with the youth development resources that they need at any age. Some of the things that Boys and Girls Clubs that are kind of unique is just unique experiences for kids. Ian was telling me that he entered our African American History Month art contest. His picture is actually up at the Moline U.S. Settler right now. So just kind of giving kids a unique way to, yeah, I know, right? He did Jesse Owen. Jesse Owen, right? Yeah, there's a picture of Jesse Owen up there. That's his. So different things that we're able to give for kids. Obviously, all of our kids have different needs. And what Boys and Girls Clubs really wants to focus on is, getting kids out of that cycle of poverty, giving them a voice. So even the younger kids do have some say in what they're doing. Obviously, there's things that we have to do, but if you have to do a sports program, can it be a sport that they're interested in? And then we also want to make sure that all of our kids just have a loving, supportive environment where they feel like they are prepared for their future. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Do you have very many older children?
So this program that we're applying for is only for elementary students.
Elementary,
Yeah,
okay.
we do have a teen center at our Davenport and Moline each have like essentially a teen center affiliate that has about, I believe they have about 36 members right now that are middle and high school.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next presenter is Salvation Army.
Hello, my name is Kelly Larned. I'm the Program and Operations Director for the Salvation Army Quad City Family Services. And this is Athena.
Hi, nice to meet you.
And so we are applying for case management for our one-time assistance program, and Athena went through our one-time assistance.
Yes, I thank God for Salvation Army. They have got me out of a barrier that I was going through. I had ended up losing my employment due to childcare. My childcare provider had closed down her business. So if anyone has kids, you understand, like, it's so hard to drop them off to a complete stranger. So I needed assistance from Salvation Army, and they helped me with rent assistance, utility assistance, and now that I have that barrier, I'm able to not get terminated from my duplex that I have now. And I got a job at AT&T, so making $17 an hour. So with their help, I can continue to work and take care of my children in a more comfortable manner. So 5 years ago, I actually stayed in the shelter of the Salvation Army when it was on 6th Street, and I was able to get my degree. I just wanted to show you. I have my associate's degree in criminal justice. And without Salvation Army, I just don't know how that would have been possible, because they took such a burden off of my shoulders. And I was able to pay more attention to my kids, and it's just such a wonderful program that I will always be thankful for, because they helped me get through so much in my life, being a single mother. So, and I continue to do good to this day with their help. So I'm just excited about my new job. I started on the 24th, and they took a lot of pressure off me, and just a whole lot of pressure. So I'm just glad to be here today, and I'm just so thankful for them for their help. So thank you.
About October 1st of 2018, the Salvation Army decided to change the way that we're looking and serving the homeless population. We still have our shelter and other services, but we really wanted to try to intervene with families and individuals before they actually have to come into shelter. So keeping them in their own home, or if they find a new home, paying that deposit, because when finding a new place, I mean, you're looking at over $1,000 at least to be able to move in, and it's for families that supporting with kids and things, it's hard for them to be able to come up with all of that money. So with this program, and the case manager works with them on, one, making sure that they can afford the place they're going into. They work on a budget to make sure that if there's places, maybe their budget is really tight, where can we cut out so that they can continue to meet their rent month by month. And since October of 1st, 2018, we've been able to serve 188 Davenport households. And so we've been really excited with the program, and we hope that continue to get the funding so that we can continue to help people like Athena to be able to be in their own home instead of having to come into shelter where it's more difficult on the family, and especially the children, where they're in a place for 30 days and in the room with mom and dad and stuff. So we want to be able to keep them in their new place. So thank you. Do you have any questions?
I do.
Yes, Chris.
On the matrix where it was showing how many had been served, it said 55, and the answer was that the 55 represented households but the new, it said 300 participants. How many households does that equate to?
To give you the exact number, I would have to get back to you of how many the three.
Guesstimate.
We did 188 from October 1st to present, so, total we've served 502 people. That's Illinois and Iowa, so, I don't know.
That's okay, I don't wanna put you on
I'm
that.
sorry. I can get you the answer. I can look at it. I can pull it in stats, but unfortunately, I don't have the answer with me right now. But I can get it for you. I can email it to Dawn and Heather.
Yep.
Okay. And then one final question. All of the money that was granted last year wasn't used. And I see on the response, it gives a couple of other people that fill in. Why weren't their hours expensed to the CDBG?
So they are ones that, before, so when we've had the turnover, we didn't always have somebody in that position. So with that, with high turnover, we've started cross-training everybody. So sometimes it was me that was filling in, which I couldn't do the expenses for myself as the program director, so a lot of it was me. But so now I've cross-trained people so that if that does happen in the future, then they would be able to get, be able to get paid for those people that are doing it. So those are two people that would be able to do it. There's one more person that we just hired that's getting cross-trained, but those two would for sure be there. And like Malia, who I listed on there, has been with us for over a year and stuff. So some of her stuff was billed. It's just not a whole lot of it because she runs our rapid rehousing program and coordinate entry as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Next up is Housing Rehabilitation and Neighborhood Revitalization Fund.
Oh, I don't know if we can listen to her.
I was gonna say, basically, it's just me. I'm sorry. So, for record, I am Dawn Cameron. I'm the lead financial specialist for the city of Davenport. And I thought because we had some new members and, at times, I'm asked, so what is it you do? So I thought it might be a good idea to just run down some of the programs that we deliver, in our department. So the first two I'm gonna talk about, they were actually delivered at one of our CDBG subrecipients agencies, but that agency closed. One of the things the CAC asked of us is, we think these are vital, they're important, we're serving people in our community, can you keep it going, within your department? And we said, yeah, we can take it on, we've got it to give. And City Council agreed with you and approved to have us do that. So the first two I thought I would talk about would be down payment, which is a grant. And so applicants, first of all, need to be approved by a traditional lender. It needs to be a fixed rate mortgage. It has to meet, all of these have to meet, of course, HUD's standards for income requirements and property standards as well. And so it must meet HUD's definition of affordable. And then we can provide up to $2,500 for down payment and closing costs. Now, HUD does cut us a little bit in the federal regulations and says we can only provide 50% of that minimum down payment required in closing costs. So that's why we kind of keep it at the number that we have. It seems to be working well. So that is one of the programs that we have. It is a grant, but you must live in the home for 5 years so that there isn't any repayment back to us. The other one we took on was the exterior accessibility grant. That is just a grant. Normally it would be a ramp to the home. Sometimes it's best for us to go to a side door or a back door if we have a little bit more length in the yard. Sometimes the front works as well. When those aren't options and we just can't get what is that ADA rise, we will go to a lift product. So that is the other one. That is a grant that we've taken on as well. This year we do have our DREAM project. That is a forgivable 5-year loan for exterior work in homes, and that's in a defined area. And we have 18 properties right now in program year 45, so that's exciting. So for properties outside of the DREAM area, we still do have a loan program for that, for work that needs to be done, and we're going to be addressing health and safety hazards there. At times throughout the year, throughout the city, there might be times for an emergency. And so we're looking at furnace, plumbing, electrical, or a roof that is actively failing. So we have a safety hazard that we need to address. And so that application can be applied for anyone within the city limits as well. We have our urban homestead program, so we're acquiring properties and we're rehabbing them and we're selling those to federally eligible households. Our down payment and our urban homestead programs, both of those recipients have to go through a HUD-approved housing counseling program. And then at the end, we have our multi-unit rental. Oh, I didn't realize you were actually timing me. Okay. This is gonna, okay. This is gonna give it a little longer, but guess not. Okay. So multi-unit rental, that would be gap funding for developers. That can be for-profit, non-for-profit, and we receive affordable housing units. And of course, when they take our money, they are going to take on those federal regulations as well that we monitor. And so, thank you very much for your time. And yes, what do you have?
When you put up the wheelchair ramps, et cetera, are those considered temporary? Are those permanent? What are they?
So, the ramps that we use at this, bless you, at this time are actually aluminum. So they are secured to the step, but they could technically be removed and moved. There are cement pads that they're sitting on.
Do they belong to the homeowner then? Once
So,
they're inside?
so because we can, with the exterior accessibility program, unlike some of our other ones, we can do it on someone who owns their home or someone who rents, as long as we get approval from the landlord. And then that product is basically belongs to the tenant. So yes, they can take it and move it. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thanks. Next presenter is CDBG Staff and Operations.
How can we get up there? That's what I did for everybody else.
Hello, Heather Johnson, with the City of Davenport's Community Planning and Economic Development. I always get the pleasure of talking with you about planning and administration. It's never the most exciting activity in the sense that I don't have cute little kids that I can bring up here with me or clients that we serve directly. We don't do direct client service, but I always like to remind you that if we don't do the administration side, then those clients cannot be served by the end user. Because the things that are required under planning and administration aren't optional. So there's no such thing as free money, and though HUD gives us these grants, they also give us a lot of requirements that go along with the grants. So those are things like, first of all, having a CAC. So we have to have some method of citizens weighing in on how we allocate funds. And when we have these meetings, there has to be staff here. Somebody has to print your agendas. So those are all planning and administration activities. We have to do an environmental review for every single project that we do. So not just for the subrecipient projects, but each individual address that we assist with housing rehab or economic development, everything needs an environmental review. We need to do our annual plan, consolidated plans. There are studies that we're required to have. So either staff has to do them directly, which often we do, or for larger ones that are more specialized, we do have to contract out for those. But even if we're contracting out, somebody has to set up the RFP process and evaluate the responses and keep the contractor on track in doing whatever it is that we're asking them to do, making sure they're delivering a quality product that's also compliant. So So that's a lot of what we do. And then also the financial side of things. So each and every time our subrecipients serve a client, they are able to ask for reimbursement for their expenses for that. And so we here in our office have to review their, first of all, get them to contract, review their request for reimbursement, make sure they're accurate, follow up, fix any issues that might be there. Our finance department cuts them a check. So there are many different hands that touch every single thing that happens. And that includes things like our legal department. So a tiny little sliver of the cost of the legal department is paid for with CDBG because we need on an annual basis for them to review our contracts and our clients. A tiny little sliver of our finance department, a tiny little sliver of our maintenance department, because there was a cost for us to occupy our space in City Hall, even though Davenport owns it. We have to have computers to run, we have to have phones that ring, we have to have all of these things. There's a cost to it, it's not free. So those are the kinds of things that planning administration offer. I'm pleased to say that we've been able to reduce our expenses over the last couple of years. So we are now almost entirely paid with entitlement funds. We no longer have to take quite as large of a chunk of the program income as we have in past years. So we're getting there to hopefully get down within just that entitlement number. The other thing is on the rehab staff side, this year you notice that our request is significantly lower than it has been. And that's because on the DREAM project, there are quite a few projects that are not CDBG eligible that cannot be paid with CDBG rehab staff money. And so the city has contributed non-federal funds to pay for the staff time to administer the non-federal DREAM program. So that enables us to reduce our request, which makes more funding available for rehab projects. So we've been able to be efficient and economize, and we appreciate your support in the past, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have about next year.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess I'll just stay up here and talk about minutes when the time comes. I brought it up here.
All right, next order of business is review and approve the January 6, 2020 meeting minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next order of business is a review and accept the financial report through October 2020. Second?
I second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next order is other business.
So for other business, just a reminder that next month is our allocation meeting, so that will be on Monday, March 2nd. In front of you, you have the paper version of the scoring sheets. You have 2 copies each. I know some people like to have them as scratch paper. When we sent the packet out earlier this week, we also included the email version. If you're able and you feel comfortable, we encourage you to do the email version, in part because it's in Excel and it has controls that'll keep you from overscoring categories, and it'll do math for you. But if you do not feel like doing the Excel one, it's perfectly fine just to write them out. You can scan those and email those to us, or you can just bring them in to us, however you prefer. The deadline for those is on the form. So if you have any questions over the next couple weeks, you can get in touch with us. We can answer with you. Can't tell you how to score it, but we can tell you, we can answer any questions you might have. So on allocation night, we will have a light supper available in the Civil Rights Conference Room starting at 5:30. During that time, you'll be able to review the total scores of each of the applicants. There can be no discussion, however, because the discussion needs to be saved for the official meeting, but we do like to provide you a dinner just because it sometimes tends to be a longer night. And so then our CAC meeting will come to order at 6 o'clock in council chambers. Hopefully we won't get both next time. So that is all I had for you, other than if you haven't already talked with your appointing official about continued service on the CAC, I encourage you to do so. The current term will be up at the end of March. And we would love to see all your smiling faces back here in April. So.
Do you have the report card?
I didn't bring any extra copies. We handed that out at the work session, but I can get one for you.
I've got one here.
Oh,
I might have scribbled on it a little bit.
You know what?
Yeah.
I have one in the extra books.
oh, okay. Do you have one still? If you give this one away?
I don't need it.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Do you need one also? Okay. And then you want to adjourn?
Yeah. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
Yes.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.